Hello to those joining from the waiting room. If you're tuning in, you are in a great place to be. This is the Healy Center's Community Q&A webinar. We are calling in from all over the country today, actually, but this webinar series is offered through Mass General Hospital in Boston. If you wanted to sign up to be part of our Healy ALS Center ALS link, that's an email broadcast system we use to share information about these webinar opportunities and different research notifications from our center. So if you have your iPhones handy, there's a QR code for you to scan. But I think most people are in from the waiting room now, so we can head to the next slide. And I'm going to hand things over for the presentation portion to Dr. Sabrina Paganoni, who will provide a little bit of information about the design of the platform trial, how the placebo group design works, and then also providing information about what it means to retire that placebo data and make it available to other researchers. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Paganoni.
Thank you so much. And what a pleasure to be here tonight. I'll be very brief because I really would love to hear more from our panelists today. I'm really excited that we have several members of our patient advisory committee. We've been meeting with many of you since 2019, actually even before we launched the platform trial at the time of design. Some of you were part of the committee, other colleagues were also part of the committee, and throughout the launch and development of the trial, you have been with us. So I'm so happy that you're here tonight. And I'm also most very grateful that all of you and additional colleagues who are not here tonight have contributed to the platform trial, which really would not be possible without the contributions from everyone in the community. First and foremost, the participants and their families, and up there again with the participants, I will say this amazing team of patient advisors, caregivers, people that really care about the ALS community. All of you have made such a great impact on the design and conduct of the trial. And so for those of you who may be new, a very quick reminder, next slide. We have the platform trial for ALS. This is the first platform trial for ALS. And the reason we were really so excited to start it in 2020 and continue to add new drugs over the last 5 years is because we can use the same house to the same protocol, the same infrastructure to test many drugs, sort of in parallel and sequentially. We call each drug a regimen. So far, we have tested 7 regimens, and we are very excited to be launching a few more regimens over the next few months. And the backbone, really the core of the platform approach is that by using the same infrastructure, the same house, the same protocol, we can actually share placebo participants among different regimens. What does that mean? As you may know, and I'll ask some of my colleagues who are on the call tonight maybe to explain that better than I can, but from a clinical perspective, what sharing placebos means that we can reduce the number of participants who are assigned to placebo because we can compare each drug against the shared or common placebo group. And because of that, we don't need a large number of placebo participants for each drug, but we can just, again, synergize across different drug regimens and have this shared placebo that's really the backbone of the platform trial. Without the platform approach, this would not be possible, and we would need more people allocated to placebo. Next slide. So for every participant that's in the trial, we study the effects of the drug, safety, efficacy, and many aspects of the impact of the drug or the several drugs that we have been testing. But importantly, we're also learning a lot about ALS, about what causes ALS, what makes ALS progress. And we do that by collecting a number of items from each participant. Every participant is generously contributing not only to this particular trial, but to ALS science more broadly. Each participant provides blood samples, spinal fluid samples, they participate in digital measures, and we test a number of biomarkers, DNA and other biomarkers that we can talk more about later on. But the core of this, I just want to emphasize the critical importance of the trial in advancing ALS science. So you may wonder, so why can we do that in in this particular trial and not in maybe other trials? Well, because we have this shared placebo group, we continue to make it bigger. Again, while we keep the number of people on placebo as little as possible, we're still enrolling in, we will be enrolling in new regimens and continue to grow and continue to accumulate data. And the important part of this is that we can also share the data. That's the process that we call retirement. We share the data with the scientific community. And so I want to explain how that works. Next slide. Essentially, as we test drugs and drugs come in and out of the platform trial, when we're done with a certain set of drugs, we can retire their data and retire their samples to make those data and samples available. I said earlier that we have tested 7 drugs so far. So the first 5 are like our first era, our first group of drugs. We retire those drugs. And now we are able to share the data and the samples with the entire scientific community to amplify the impact of this trial, because the data and samples are shared outside of the platform trial with the entire scientific community. Anyone globally, again, can access this or can request to access the data and the samples. And we want to do that obviously in a responsible way. We have a process so that, people who want to do, important scientific research can access. But that's really unique, and I think one aspect that we really care about deeply about in the platform trial, because we want to test drugs, but we also want to help others, advance science and discover new drugs. And that's why we're here tonight, to kind of see to discuss and to learn from our panelists who have lived experience in many different ways, to tell us more about what this process means, what it is from the perspective of the participants or patients or caregivers. And so with that, I think I'll turn it over to you, Catherine, for quick announcement before we dive into the kind of the main part of the program tonight.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dr. Paganoni. So before we stop sharing the slides, I just wanted to give everyone a notification about the next webinar opportunity. It's going to be a few weeks until we host the next one due to some conflicts with conferences and things, but on October 23rd, Dr. Lori Chipnick, who is one of our biostatisticians extraordinaire for the trial, she'll be joining and hosting the webinar to basically talk about how to decode scientific publications and specifically kind of review the results papers for the first 5 regimens that have retired placebo data. So that one I think will be really interesting to tune in, and everybody's welcome there as well. But if we stop sharing the slides, we have lots of amazing panelists here, and I've got 6 questions for our 6 panelists before we start taking questions in the Q&A. And Nadia, I'm actually going to shine the spotlight on you first. So I'll have you introduce yourself, and then if you could just comment on the role of the Patient Advisory Committee and how that committee is involved in the design and conduct of the platform trial.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks for having me. I was a caregiver to my husband, Sandeep, and he had ALS in 2019 and 2020. I'm so glad to be able to talk about the Patient Advisory Committee for the platform trial, because he was involved from 2019 for his 2 years. And I think I used to sit with him and help him work the computer and all that stuff. And so I got to hear things from the start, and then I joined the committee after he passed away. But the committee has been really integral in the whole trial. It's been pretty incredible to see the doctors and the sites kind of incorporate our feedback into so many of the pieces of the platform trial. These webinars came out of discussions that we had there. The expanded access program that runs in parallel to the platform trial also came out of there. We've helped kind of manage communications, right? If there's a certain way things should be worded and things like that. We are often reached out to edit documents and to provide feedback on things like that. We have had input on specific regimens. I remember there was an IV regimen, and we all gave a lot of input, on so many things. At that time, a lot of people had ports placed because of Radicava was an IV drug back then. And so there was a lot of nuanced discussions that were able to happen that really need to come from our side and what we've lived through that have fed into shaping how the platform trial works. So I think just about everybody here has been involved for a long time, so I'd love to hear if anyone else has thoughts. But it's been pretty incredible to see how our thoughts have shaped this trial in the last many years and how far it's come.
Yeah, if I can just piggyback on what you're saying, Nadia, also, I think that what's so incredible about us coming together tonight is that, or this afternoon, is that we've become such an integral part of not only the community, but also the scientific community as well. And being able to lend our voices not only as patients, but as caregivers as well. And so I think with all of our input and our opinions and our discussions, which really are taken to heart by the researchers. It's really rewarding for us sitting here this afternoon with all of you to share what our experience has been and what also MGH has allowed us to, and the Healy Center has allowed us to contribute.
Thank you both. And yeah, I will certainly echo that the Patient Advisory Committee is a huge part of what we do here at the Healy Center and what we do for the platform trial, and helping us ensure the patient-centric aspects of the trial as new drugs come on and as protocols change. So thank you, all of you here on the call, everyone who's ever been part of it, everyone who's no longer part of our committees but gave input. It still, stays with us, that advice over the years. So thank you. Um, and Gwen, the next question I have is actually for you. I'll have you start things off. So again, to introduce yourself and then go into, from the patient perspective, what does data sharing mean, kind of in the context of what the presentation was today?
Yeah. So, hi. Thanks for everyone on the phone, online for joining us. I'm Gwen Peterson. I was diagnosed with ALS at 32 years old. It came out of nowhere. It's still relatively shocking, my diagnosis. And so in context, Catherine, of the question, I wrote something down to seem like I'm prepared. So from one patient's perspective, this patient, data sharing means providing one's information, sometimes your personal health information, to not only improve your own care, but data sharing has potential to benefit others, right? Data sharing could advance research on a broader level, something way bigger than us, and lead to discoveries such as a better understanding of underlying disease biology. Data sharing could mean, one day we have disease modifying therapies for sporadic ALS, treatments that will significantly slow or halt progression. And data sharing on a broader scale could mean that we have verifiable research targets, biomarkers, right? All of these things we desperately need in ALS. And so for me, again, data sharing means that I'm contributing to something greater, kind of the sum of all the parts and the bigger picture. So thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Gwen. That was very well said. And you do seem prepared, but I can't imagine that. I'm sure you would also speak very beautifully, just speaking off the cuff. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment. I want to give people a chance before I jump and put the next person on the spotlight. Okay, we'll head into the next question. And Lori, the audience got a sneak peek of your opinion, so I'll have you give some context as to who you are. And then my question for you is, what is the role of an open access database like PROACT in helping ALS research?
Okay. Thank you, Catherine, and thanks for inviting me to be on this panel today. My name is Lori Andre. I live in Chicago. My husband was diagnosed in the fall of 2016 with ALS, with sporadic ALS, and is seen at MGH for the past 9 years. Yeah, so, and happy to say that he's doing quite well. So the way I like to look at PROACT is almost like a library, which everybody can have access to, which is amazing because by sharing this data openly and giving access to scientists literally around the world, it actually makes trials more efficient and ensures, and this is an important fact, that the contributions from past trial participants continue to benefit the ALS community. So I think in a way, this is really honoring the community, which I think is really important for all the patients and caregivers who've participated in trials. We know how burdensome they can be, but knowing that their contribution is really what's going to help create this database for scientists and researchers to actually access. And so what this means is that hopefully that this will accelerate the discovery, sorry, and researchers can actually test some hypotheses that by using the existing data. So in my opinion, this becomes much more efficient and probably less costly than starting from scratch when it comes to trial. I think it also can improve future trial designs with the data that's collected and the analysis that's being done. So researchers can then refine some of the criteria. They can maybe predict progression rates. We can reduce the placebo size, which again leads to faster discovery and much more efficiency. And then I think really another important factor is that what the project does is it really enables collaboration worldwide. So it's not just here in the US, it's access around the world where other researchers can work with the data, which to me would also help increase innovation and help speed up possible breakthroughs for effective therapies. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Lori. That was very well said. And I think the next question actually segues quite nicely. So, Michael, have you introduce yourself? And then I wanted to hear from your perspective, how does sharing this placebo data from previous platform trial participants, it's a lot of P's in a row, but how does that help the ALS scientific community?
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. My name is Michael Robinson, and I'm a retired physician and was diagnosed in 2015 and spent most of my career in pharmaceutical drug development. First and foremost, and really to piggyback onto Lori, having this data really helps contribute in terms of design, patient-centered benefits. It really helps the past participants that were on placebo, their data lives on and can really help the design of future trials. There's a number of areas that having this data can improve the scientific and design of additional new trials, and that it can help having this pooled placebo data across multiple trials can increase sample size and diversity of the control group, which can help with precision estimates and really help design better trials with more power to detect treatment differences if they do exist. Remember that these placebo participants
Michael, I think your video
our
paused
ability
for
to
me.
identify.
Oh, sorry, Michael, your video paused for me. Just wanted to let you know you froze for a second
Sorry.
there. You're back with us.
Um, okay. This can help us identify potential subgroups with different progression rates. It can help us explore biomarkers. It can refine different outcome measures. We can use this data to accelerate biomarker validation and potential surrogate endpoints that can be used in accelerated approvals. So overall, having this data really helps scientists and future trials design a better trial, often more efficiently, hopefully use less placebo control, which means more patients on active treatment, and and really improves the transparency and reproducibility of results as well. So overall, this really adds a lot and honors, as Lori said, really honors the patients that participated as their data lives on and contributes to new research.
Thanks, Michael. And it's always great hearing your perspective given your background area of expertise. That's not often. I certainly don't have the insight that you do. And almost as if by design, the next question piggybacks off that one fairly nicely too. Who wrote this webinar? But I'm gonna have you introduce yourself, Bob, and then my question for you is, do you think that the placebo data from the platform trial could be used to develop better trials, or have an impact on the conduct of future research trials in ALS?
Okay, well, I'll just give a brief introduction to who I am. My daughter Beth, my oldest daughter, was diagnosed with ALS. It'll be 12 years ago next week. And we've been involved with the community really much ever since she was diagnosed. And, you know, for the first time in those 12 years, and I want to really emphasize this is really kind of a first, the use of this placebo data, which longitudinally tracks individual patients over a period of time to give insight into disease progression, is critically important. It's just an amazing step forward in that it will allow you, and I'm kind of a self-proclaimed math geek because even though I'm a lawyer by training, I used to manage actuaries in the insurance industry. What it does is it allows you to see the correlation, first of all, between biomarkers and disease progression in a way over a period of time that hasn't been seen before and hasn't been able to be studied in this way. So the idea of getting the FDA to approve surrogate endpoints for basis of accelerated approval, you know, this opens up a whole new world for that. Secondly, you know, if you were looking at stage 4 cancer drug development, you would, as a researcher, kind of be appalled and surprised if it was even suggested you were going to use placebo control arms in those kinds of trials. We can now kind of see for the first time the possibility of using biostatistical methods to get to placebo-less trials where there are no placebos and you're using an artificial control group, if you will, that's based on the placebo data, you know, which we can now compare baseline placebo data on these 200 patients to actual outcomes at the conclusion of the trial, which is absolutely invaluable. I mean, if I had to put it in kind of a short couple of sentences, for a math geek like me, this is like Christmas becoming every day. And we owe an incredible debt and thankfulness to the 205 patients whose data now is in this repository along with biofluids, and it will allow researchers really to do some of the things I've just suggested and probably many more. So I'll quit there.
Thanks so much, Bob, for sharing your thoughts. And yes, it's definitely been nice to be able to work so closely with a lot of you, but Bob definitely sees me at more meetings than he would like, potentially. And the next and last question for this panel discussion will be for Allison, who some of you who have been with us for a while might recognize Allison as my prior partner in crime, but Allison, I'll let you introduce yourself here. And then the question that I have for you is, what would you say to somebody who was in the placebo group, who was assigned to the placebo group for that initial randomized controlled period of the platform trial? What would you say to them about what their contributions mean for ALS research?
Thanks, Catherine. I'm so excited to be here because, as you said, this is such a stellar group of humans with both my colleagues and my friends, and there's no distinguishing factor between the two. Everybody's both. So really happy to be here. As you know, I lost my husband to ALS in 2016 and have had the incredible journey of getting to work with MGH and Niels and now ALS1 along the way. So I wanted to just briefly maybe say something to everybody that was in the placebo group that may be a little different perspective. So because of my personal journey, I understand the absolute desperation to find answers and to do something, right? Anything to stop this disease. But I also understand the devastation and the frustration that follows negative trials and finding out that you're in a placebo group. And I know and respect that not everyone participates in trials for altruistic reasons. But the truth is, I've seen it from both sides, and participating in trials like the HEALEY platform trial is beneficial to everyone now and moves science forward now. So being a tech person, I just want you to look at it a little different for a second. So we hear a lot how ALS is such a heterogeneous disease, and that's part of why it's so difficult to study. So this is how we stop saying that and start addressing that. What if you are the missing piece to the part of that puzzle? Like, what if the data that you shared in this trial, whether you were in the control group or the placebo group, what if it was exactly what we needed to see a trend that the scientists could act upon? Traditionally, like phase 2, phase 3 trials, while still necessary, it's still the gold standard. They usually test one therapy in a relatively small group of participants with pretty strict eligibility requirements. And that means whatever the answer we get is, does this drug work in this group under these conditions? But it's not a full picture and it takes a lot of time. So by combining everyone's clinical, genetic, biomarker, real-world data, whether you are in the interventional arm or the placebo arm, that allows researchers to see patterns that were maybe invisible in smaller studies. And what's so really special about the HEALEY platform trial is that it's intentionally designed to recruit a broader, more diverse patient population than many historical ALS trials. So this data can help to identify those subgroups, as Michael had, I think, mentioned, and highlight pathways worth targeting and detect subtle effects so that we don't pass by any potential treatments that worked for some but failed when we tested them on all. So the bottom line is you're not just in the placebo group, you aren't the 205. You are actually the reason researchers can distinguish hope from real progress. You made it possible for science to move forward towards effective treatments right now. So thank you to everybody who participated, regardless of which arm you were in. Not right there.
Thank you, Allison. And yeah, I think the theme of these webinars, the theme of the trial is just we have a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions for you all here tonight. We as researchers have a lot of questions. There's just a lot of questions surrounding ALS, and we're trying to find those answers together collaboratively as a community. So thank you for being our partners in this, to those on the call, to those who are on the committees, and to those who have put questions in the Q&A box, which we will get to now. So Dr. Paganoni, you haven't spoken in a while, and I think we might as well turn things back to you for a little bit. So somebody in the chat has a question about the timelines of placebo data retirement, and I think it might be helpful to kind of draw things back to that time point of when do you reveal whether someone's even on the placebo group to the point of actually sharing with the broader community.
Thank you so much. And it's really been a pleasure to listen to everyone's perspectives. And I do want to emphasize again that, there's not a single person who has all the answers, but one of the fundamental reasons we launched the platform trial is to bring as many people as possible who want to find answers together and collaborate and do that in an innovative way. That's fundamentally the premise of the platform trial, that we want to work together with companies, patients, anyone, foundations, people that want to find answers, and definitely sharing data and samples, as we just heard, is one way to find more answers. And so in terms of when the data can be shared, I'm happy to say that the data has already been shared. So the data from the 205 participants in the first 5 regimens of the platform trial has been fully retired. Again, retirement means active retirement. In this context means giving back to the community and being available for analysis. So the data has already been shared in PROACT. I know some of you have spoken about PROACT, as a central resource, a central database. I do want to acknowledge that other companies and groups have donated to PROACT before us and continue to donate, and so that's important. There's no requirement, there's no law mandating that anyone donates data for the common good, but we're hoping that many people will join, and as soon as possible, when each trial is finished, or in our case of the platform trial, when we retire a set of, in one era, a set of regimens, then we can donate. We cannot do that prematurely. In other words, you cannot statistically and scientifically, in order to respect the integrity of the trial, you cannot retire placebo data in this case, or share data until the trial has been fully completed, until those data are being used as an active comparator. So we cannot do that, unfortunately, kind of on a rolling basis, kind of on an individual basis. We have to complete a set of analyses and completely lock all our processes, which means no additional changes can be made until we can retire and donate. So that also, kind of as a kind of to link to your question, Catherine, also at that time, we can also let participants know if they were on active or placebo. I do want to point out that in the platform trial design, there is an active treatment extension for those who complete the placebo portion. But again, we have to complete both the placebo portion and the active treatment extension, and completely lock and finalize all the data in each regimen before we can even fully retire them. I do anticipate that we're gonna retire other regimens as well. Again, that's gonna be sort of in blocks, as each block is concluded, then we can share the data. And so this is the first time that we're retiring data from the platform trial. It's not gonna be the last time. And now we are, I saw a preview of the other questions. If people are asking, when are the next regimens coming? And that's a great question. We already announced 2 regimens, Horizon and Transposon, and we have a 3rd regimen in the works. And so we are, we're planning on opening them at the end of 2025, early 2026, depending on the specific regimen. So those are coming, they are in the works. And again, as we move on to our kind of 3rd group of regimens, hopefully we'll be able to retire even more placebos from sort of the number 6 and number 7 that were just completed. So again, this is going to be an ongoing process. We have a fantastic collaborative community, and we'll continue to contribute.
One of the related questions in the chat is somebody's asking, why is only the placebo data being submitted to PROACT?
That's a great question. And I mean, ideally in the future, it would be great to also submit the active group. I would say, this is, first of all, there's no requirement to submit anything to PROACT or to share any data or samples. In fact, historically, most trials have not done that. So I guess as a first step, our current agreements with the companies allow us to share the placebo data. I surely hope that in the future, companies may consider donating more at the end of each clinical trial development program. But again, that's hopefully we're taking the first step now. That's not going to be the last one. Yeah.
Hey, Catherine, I see it. I see a question that I love. I want to ask Sabrina. Sabrina, we've got someone who's in a clinical trial. This person is asking, is it a requirement that all phase 2 or phase 3 trials must offer open label extension? And if not, why not?
There's no requirement. There's no requirement. In fact, I would say some of our trials were the very first that they offered that. I'm going back to the Centaur trial. I think that was one of the first. And then as we continue to engage with advisors, like all of you on the call and some of your colleagues who are part of the committee who are not on the call tonight, we have continued to engage with the community and to see, what can we do to promote this paradigm. I mean, I will say open label extension or active treatment extension studies are very valuable because they can provide data, because obviously they're valuable for the participants because they will receive active treatment. There's no requirement to have that done. They're also complex. they're costly, expensive, and they do add some value for the drug manufacturer, but they're not, again, required, and they do add a lot of complexity and cost. So again, we're trying to promote that paradigm, and hopefully, again, this will continue to be a possibility. One technical note that I want to mention, for some companies or some programs that are very early, you also need some data called toxicology data or preclinical data in order to be able to even do the active treatment extension. So that doesn't apply necessarily to the platform trial, but I do want to mention that sometimes there's no regulatory permit to actually do it. But for the platform trial studies, yes, we have been able to do active treatment extension for all the regimens.
Thanks, Dr. Paganoni, and thank you, Gwen, for highlighting that question in the chat. I think there's one more question that we'll get to tonight. And somebody's asking to get a little more insight into how the FDA treats or views the PROACT data compared to the data that's used for the active trial or in the process toward accelerated approval for study drugs.
Can I take a stab at that? We've had a long history of talking with the FDA about just that very topic. And one of the things, and that's why something I was alluding to before is so important about what's being done here, is the FDA is going to require a certain level of proven accuracy in basically using, whether it's historical data or virtual twin type data, in being the control as opposed to a placebo arm, which is the traditional control. That level is a pretty high level of accuracy. And while some of the algorithmic formulas for predicting disease progression, survival, or breathing capacity are very good, they haven't been able to get to a level where the FDA has been able to say, yes, you hit that accuracy level we want. I think by having access to this placebo data, especially being able to integrate biomarker data into the algorithm, it is actually possible, by using some other mathematical techniques, to dial up to an even much higher level of accuracy, especially if you're trying to accurately not predict a single patient's progression, but the mean progression for a larger group of patients you're applying the algorithm to. So I really do, coming from my own background, see that there's, we're closer than we ever were to getting the FDA to nod their head in a yes position as opposed to a we're just not sure no position.
Thanks, Bob, for jumping in on that. And those, I think we're going to wrap up. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I'm happy to reach out to people individually after the call. But I don't want to be the one to say closing comments tonight because I feel like I'm the least important person in this Zoom panel here.
Catherine, can I say one thing very quickly?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you to you and to Dr. Paganoni, because I know how much work goes behind the scenes for you to keep this going. And it isn't every week or every month, but year after year after year, you two have showed up. So thank you.
Yeah, I would add to Allison's comment there that in working with you, Catherine, working with Sabrina, and working with, frankly, all the people at Healy and that have been involved in the platform trial, I have a long history going back 12 years. And when I first started that history advocating in the community, it was a very rare event to really be accepted by the doctors and the scientists and the people who are really doing the tough work here. But you all have just made us all as patients and caregivers feel so welcome in offering our own opinions and in, trying to add to your efforts, which are really the lion's share of the efforts. I just want to recognize, how much I personally appreciate your openness.
Thanks, Bob. And I'll say, yeah, I couldn't and wouldn't want to do my job as a patient navigator without this kind of direct input. I don't know how I would be able to do it. But Dare, I'm afraid to ask in case my face turns beet red again. But if anyone else has closing comments, you are welcome to chime in before we sign off for the night.
Catherine, real quick, do you have the emails of the two who submitted questions who we didn't get to?
I do, yes. Yeah, when
Okay.
people join anonymously, I can't find their emails, but I will be able to
Okay.
track down the contact information for those two people.
Amazing. Because those were great and thoughtful questions. Thank you.
I'm appreciating the outspokenness of this group. And this is, and I'm grateful to Dr. Paganoni and Catherine for listening to us. So you can see we all have a lot to say.
And I like the outspoken questions in the comments. And please, 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 like, ask your clinics those questions. Don't be afraid, don't shy away. Like, these are excellent questions. And so please, please continue to ask them.
All right, since everybody's making a comment, I'm going to chime in here really quickly. I I love this format, and I think that Catherine and Sabrina, I mean, you pulled this off. It was amazing, and Elisa and Lee, and I mean everyone behind the scenes. But I, as a participant, and have been sat as a participant on many webinars, I think that, and it'd be interesting to see what people who are in the audience have to say about this type of format, if this is something that they like, because it's sort of like a peer-to-peer, which I think is really important. And a lot of us come with varied experiences. We're in different places depending on their disease or our spouses or loved ones' diseases. So I think it's really great to hear from everybody else. So I'm a proponent of this format. So.
And I'll just say one last, keep asking questions. There isn't a bad question. This is such a complex and disease. We all get different experiences, and it's so heterogeneous. Just keep asking your questions.
Thank you. And we already have gotten positive feedback saying, loved the format for this one. So unfortunately, that means I will be knocking on all of your email doors again, I'm sure. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to those in the audience. Thank you to everyone who is curious and helping to have these conversations that are so important. And we will hopefully see you on Thursday, October 23rd for Lori Chibnik. Not Lori Andre, but probably Lori Andre will be back. So Lori Chibnik will be our presenter on October 23rd, and hope to see you there. Have a good night,
Thank you
everybody.
so much. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.